Welcome everybody to Be Women Solutions weekly webinars where we connect, we share, we learn, we seek to further understand how we can be inspired and inspire the world and be incredible citizens. So a few words about Be Women Solution. We are a global network of women entrepreneur and intrapreneur that seek to balance purpose and profits towards a caring economy. You heard me right, a caring economy. That means caring for people and nature. And this system of caring economy is super aligned with Purposehood. That is the webinar of today. We'll have a 60 minutes of pure purpose to find our why. And Ammar, a friend and founder of Purposehood, it will inspire you and will change your life as it has changed my life. He has actually been a seeker since early age, very young age, and read anthropology and world religions, spent 10 years with a Sufi masters and religious scholars, studying, teaching, subsequently serving as a clerk. And later, he realized that he needed to, I think, make money or live on something. So he started, as you can imagine, like 30 enterprises, became extremely successful. He was also an engineer. That's why when you read his book, you see that he's really an engineer. He's not a philosopher or not. He's a real engineer because he really has facts and figures all over the place. And you will love that. But the best part is that after a near-death experience followed by 11 years of deep dive into a meaningful life, today Ammar is focusing on working with volunteers and professionals to spark Purposehood movement to unleash the potential of every human being towards their existential purpose in order to build a better future for everybody. Don't we have to? That's what Be Women is all about. And Ammar shares also his book that is amazing. It's a workshop talks. This book has #1 in Amazon. Released as one of the best humanitarian philosophies and transpersonal psychology. So with that, I want to first start with a few seconds about the Be Women Empowering move that is very related with Purposehood. That is to put your shoulders back, your chin up, your eyes that twinkle with joy and determination, and with a super wide smile. I want everybody smiling, because smiling will open our heart. Ammar, the line is all yours. And please, actually, can you tell us a little bit and elaborate about what was your near-death experience?
Wow, okay, that was like 2005. And during that time, I had lots of issues with business, with life, lots of challenges, and I started fainting. So I decided to go and do a medical test, because they couldn't find out before what is the reason. And during that test, they're doing like tilt table tests where you lay down, they put all these machines, and then they give you like a tablet to allow your blood to go down to your feet. And slowly I felt like, yeah, I'm fainting again. And I told the nurse, and I'm like, I feel I'm fainting. And the next thing I remember is just hearing her voice screaming, "Can you wake up? Can you wake up?" And during this time, I felt something strange. I felt like as if I was looking down at my body, and I saw the nurse panicking, and then when I opened my eyes, she said, "Okay, the doctor wants to talk to you." And the doctor said, "Okay, we got to take you to an operation." I'm like, "I'm not going to do any operation." And he said, "Well, I'll come and visit you later." So he came later to my house, and he showed me my cardiogram, and there were 3 pages of a flat line. So at that moment, I started realizing that, my God, I mean, my life could have just finished right there. So the question that was on my mind is, what was the purpose of my life? What was the purpose of the struggling or of the issues, everything that I accomplished or failed to accomplish during that time. And now that I have that life again, what should be the purpose of my life going forward? And that led me to that moment of transformation. Actually, if you think about it, sometimes we do need an existential crisis to wake us up, because we get so busy with everything that we are doing, and we forget to stop, pause, and think about the meaning or the purpose of our life. And we need this wake-up call. And I think actually this existential crisis that is facing humanity with this pandemic is making many people think the same way and start waking up that we cannot continue our lives, our societies, our businesses without a clarity of our existential purpose. We got to figure out why we are on this earth, what our life are meant to be, what we are meant to become. And then from there, start designing a life worth living instead of just living an unintentional life without any direction. And I think that was the wake-up call for me to start focusing on discovering the purpose of life.
Thank you, Ammar. That was really a great introduction. Should we start with we're going to be discussing 4 topics today, because we can't go through all the books. That is like a major treatise of history, philosophy about life and research. So we're going to touch 4 topics that are fundamental to really understand purposehood. Do you want to start with a PowerPoint and work from there?
Let me share my screen.
Oh,
can you see my screen?
Yes.
Oops.
Or should we start with the question?
Let me start here. How about this? Okay. Now, today, what I thought that, with this short time that we have, maybe we can cover quickly. I'll talk for a few minutes, then maybe we can have a quick discussion and any points that you might have a question about, especially that you read the book. Thank you. So I want to talk about our human potentiality and the jungle of life that we live in. Then I want to talk a little bit about why everyone needs a purposehood, an existential purpose, and then the process that we need to use to discover our purpose and design a life worth living. And if we have time, then I'll touch on the first step on that process, which is designing your existential self. The first question that I have here, if you can run that survey. The question that I want to ask: are you a genius? So please, if you can answer that question.
So I see a lot of people saying yes, no.
Are you a genius?
Sure. Okay. Share results.
All right. Amazing. We have 38% who know that they are genius, 43% that say no, and 19% that they're not sure. So actually it's, if you can stop that, I don't know how to stop it.
Yeah, no, I did it. Okay.
Okay. All right. So this question was asked by actually NASA in 1968, and they were trying to, the next year, to put a man on the moon. The year before, they had this major disaster. So they thought, okay, if we can find the geniuses among our employees, then we can put them for a critical task. So if there's a problem that we have, then they can step in right away and figure the solutions. So they hired this professor, George Land, and he designed the test to find the geniuses among the NASA employees. And after running the test, he found that actually 2% of NASA's employees were geniuses, which corresponded more or less with the general population. So I start wondering, he says, why there are these 2% among humanity that are geniuses? Is it nature or nurture? Is it something that we are born, they're born this way as geniuses, or are they made through society, parents, teaching, whatever it is, to become geniuses? think about that. Is it nature or nurture? And maybe you can type in the chat what you think, if it's a nature or nurture. But as a scientist or an engineer and designer, he said, well, I would like to design an experiment to find out if these are nature or nurture. So what he did, he took 1,600 children from all over the US in different ethnic background, different economic background, different, they all were 4 to 5 years old. And he gave them almost exactly the same test that he gave to the NASA employees. And what he found, he thought in his head, okay, if it's nature, then I should find 2% among all these samples. If it's nurture, maybe it's less than 2%. And then slowly with the education, the right circumstances, they will become genius. What he found absolutely shocked him. After running the test with 4 and 5 years old, he found that 98% of these kids were geniuses. They tested to the same level of genius like the NASA employees, the 2% of the NASA employees, 98%. It means that these stats that we just looked at, we should have had, if we actually lived with the potential that we were born with, we should have found that 98% of us are today, at least know that we are geniuses in that aspect. And genius, by the way, does not come from one color. It comes from different type of shades. It could be like something that related to linguistic intelligence, physical intelligence, etc. In there. But what he started wondering, he said, goodness, what happened? I mean, if we're born around that 4 and 5 years old with 98% of us geniuses, what happens that we drop to these 2%? So he decided to follow these people and test them every 5 years. The next time he tested them when they were 10 years old, the percentage dropped from 98 to 30%. 68% drop in geniuses by the age of 10. By the age of 15, it's 12%. And by the time they were adults, it went back to the average of 2%. Just think about that. We are born, our children, our co-employees, the people in our communities, our neighbors, the people that we sometimes fight with and say, idiots. Actually, 98% of everybody that is born. Actually, personally, I believe, Laura, that if he was able to test below the age of 4, my guess, he would have gotten 100%. The closer we are to our moment of birth, you will realize that nature created us with the abilities to be geniuses for an existential purpose. And the way that I see that every child in there is born with a seed of potentiality. The seed of potentiality is not unlike the seed that you find for any other creatures. Every creature, like a pine tree, the seed that grows a pine tree, it has usually a desire, this basic desire for surviving and reproduction. And then it has creativity. So if it faces some challenges, it always goes around it and finds a way to go around it. And it has a directional, existential direction to grow to become something in there. So if it's planted in the fertile ground, given the right nourishment, then it always grows to a beautiful pine tree. Humans, we have a little bit different modified seed of potentiality. Ours is not with just desires, but we have infinite desires. And we don't have limited creativity, we have limitless creativity. And instead of having a clear direction that we cannot choose something else, a pine tree cannot be except a pine tree. A pine seed can grow only that. But we, as a human, we have the directional choice to be whatever we want to become. We could be I say, these four main directions. We could choose to be creators, we could choose to be destroyers, we could choose to be consumers, or we could choose to be martyrs. So we have that directional choice to choose in our life. And if you think about it, those three components, when you put together, they are designed to grow a particular type of creatures, which I call a creator. And we see that in all the children, right? Children are always creating something, and they're always thinking about everything possible. They're driven to create. And with that, they naturally, as they just move in their early years, they experience happiness, they experience success, they experience fulfillment without having to seek these kind of things, just by them being and living their creator role in life. But what happened is, early on, the moment we are born, we actually get moved from the fertile ground that we are meant to grow in to what I call to the jungle of life, with our parents, with our society, with these values, and we get assigned a name, a nationality, ethnicity, religion, religious sects. None of those labels we actually chose. None of those. So we get assigned that, and then they become chains on our existence. And as we grow, we start realizing that our parents have certain expectations of us. The society has that, the teachers, the people around us, and we become a product of their expectations instead of our own potential to be whatever we are meant to be. And then at some point in our life, we start adding to ourselves limiting beliefs. We start thinking, oh, well, I could never do this. I'm not able to do that, and so on. And every time you say, I cannot, I won't, things like that, you add to yourself limiting beliefs that become a chain on our existence. And with that, we end up living in the jungle of life, like we are living today, with depressions, with stress, with anxiety. I call it the negative states of living. We feel always a sense of scarcity, we feel suffering, rejection, vacuum, and this constant tension in our life filled with the stress, anxiety, and regrets. And I was just reading, I don't know if you read this recently, like during the pandemic, there was some study that showed 1 in every 4 people, they thought they had suicidal thoughts during this pandemic. So whatever we had before, we had I think the statistics were around 10% of people might have this. Now it's actually 1 in 4. So we don't know how to deal with things in the jungle of life, because what do you do in the jungle of life? You either running after desires, those infinite desires that we have, or you're running away from fears. So with that, you lose direction. You have no direction. You are in this dense life. You gotta fight for what you want, what you're desiring, or you wanna run away from the things that threaten you. And this is how we end up lost, directionless in this jungle of life. But the only way for us to get out of this, is just to look up to the sky and find our purpose, with our existential purpose, guiding star, and then move in that direction. And once we have that, once we know a direction, then everything changes. Everything in life changes. You're not anymore. It's like the people who are climbing Mount Everest, because they have that direction in there, it doesn't matter what challenges that they face on the way, you'll always get up and go. If the day is sunny, it's beautiful. If the day is cloudy, fine, I'll keep going in here. So once you have that direction, it becomes different than you are in the middle of the mountains, have no directions. You don't know where you're gonna get any kind of comfort. And this is the key thing that we need today, is to find the existential purpose, or the purpose of our life. And I'll stop here if you have any question, Laura. You're on mute.
I don't see any questions on the chat, but maybe we could maybe we could go for the next poll to.
Okay, well, the next one is, the question that I'm asking is, have you ever thought about the purpose of your life?
This one.
No, not this one.
Question 3? That's question.
I cannot try 3.
This one.
Okay, that sounds good. How often do you think about the purpose of your life?
I guess when New Year's Eve's come and we have to have our resolutions, I think most people think it then, once a year, and then forget about it.
Well, I mean, look at this. We have the majority of the crowd definitely is the right crowd.
Most of the time.
That you think about most of the time. The important things, and maybe you can end that poll because I see it here on my screen. I don't know how you can get rid of it.
Done.
Okay, I don't know if I still have it in front of me, but anyway, the important thing that it's important for us to ask and wonder about the purpose of our life, because there's no answer to a question that you never ask. So if you don't ask yourself what is the purpose of it, if you don't ask the question, sometimes the answer might hit you in the face and you wouldn't even recognize it. So it's really important. I'm happy to see that most of you here ask about the purpose of their life. I can tell you that after my existential crisis, I realized once I figured out the purpose of my life that my life totally changed. It went out from somebody like walking, like me driving the car without my glasses, nothing is clear, and then you put your glasses on and everything is super clear. So I felt that in myself. I did the same, with all the people that I shared it with, the workshop that I did for my friends to go through that process of discovering the purpose of their life. And early on, Laura and I did that about writing your Purposehood statement. And I knew that actually it's a transformational in so many different ways, but I did not realize how powerful it is until I started doing the research and understanding all the scientific studies that were done related to the purpose of life. And in the book, I think I quote at least 40 of these research in there. And it's almost sounded like the magic wand, purpose. When you know the purpose of your life, everything changes. It becomes like resilience, it's more. Happiness increases, success increases, fulfillment increases. At any age, if people who are struggling with physical health, once they know their purpose, they live better life, and so on. So all this research you could actually find in the book in summary, and then there's a reference that you can go back to the actual research and study those. I would like maybe to take one of those and have us think about it. So allow me just a second because I cannot get rid of this one. Okay, so in this here,
we don't see the poll in front of us. Just tick off on the top.
Yeah, my mouse does not move there, so I guess maybe my laptop is a little bit old. So in this study, this is done by the University of Texas. They actually took 2,000 students, and they asked them questions to figure out who is the one that is driven by a purpose in their life and the one that are without. What they found are those students who are without purpose. They were abusing drugs much more. They had much higher anxiety. They suffered from loneliness, depressions, and the majority or large percentage of them ended up dropping out of school. For the people who had an understanding or clarity about their existential purpose, they found greater well-being, self-awareness, they shared learning, they figured out a sense of direction in their life, so their resilience was much higher, they focused on their studies, and they had higher grades. And actually, they tested then with them, and they said, well, would that affect their topics such as math or physics? And it actually did. You know, the people who have that clarity of their direction of life impacted all their performances. One of the things, and they did another study with them, and they found that these people are willing to spend more time on the challenges that they are faced with. So the other students, like once they face challenge, they just run away. These people, they were, even with the hard work that they had to do at school, they felt that they should invest the time and the effort into doing that, and that led to their success. The interesting thing that happened in that study, after they did this, they said, well, could we actually go back to the first group, the group that does not have a purpose in life, and if we make an intervention with them and help them have or discover a purpose for their life, could that change their performance? And with one intervention, so they did just one intervention, kind of like what I've done with the workshops that we've done or the courses that we've done, or what you can actually do, you know, in the book. It's all in the book. And now we also have a mobile app on iOS that can help you there just with one intervention about thinking about the purpose of your life and what you can do for these students. They moved them from one side to the other side. They moved from their start reporting better well-being, they're more self-aware, they shared the learning, they performed better, and so on, just with one intervention. The same thing happened, just another research that I don't have here. They actually took cancer patients, stage 4 cancer patients, and they separated them in two groups. One group, they gave them the psychotherapy that is used with cancer patients usually. The other group, they gave them a purpose in life intervention, where they sat and they discussed about their purpose in life, about the meaning of their life, what they planning to do with whatever time that they have left on earth to fulfill that purpose, and so on. Again, I think in the research, they planned initially to do like 8 sessions of each in here, but they ran out of funds, so they ended up just doing 1 session with these people. Still, with one intervention, those people reported less pain, more enjoyment of life, more interaction with their families, and they were able to feel happier when they just had their normal days, in comparison to the people who had the traditional psychotherapy that is used with those cancer patients. Another research that's super interesting, you know, in here, it's called the Blue Zone Studies, and I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but this is where they studied the different areas around the world, and they found 5 areas where people lived over 100 years. And they found like 9 common things among these areas. One of them, they could actually attribute directly to increasing 7 years to your life. 7 years to your life, which is knowing why you wake up in the morning. Just having that clarity of your existential purpose, having that purpose with guiding star in this jungle of life added 7 years to your life. So it is extremely important for us, for all aspects, our psychological and physical well-being, is actually to have a purpose in our life. Does that make sense, Laura?
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe here they're really eager to understand how you use your app. How do you move towards a purposehood?
Well, it's,
continue with your
let
PowerPoint.
me say this. Let me say this. It is not brain surgery. It's not rocket science to figure out the purpose of your life, but it's a process. Unfortunately, I find like lots of people, or most of us, when we are struggling, we want quick fixes, right? We always want like something, give me the one step, give me the 3 steps that I can do to change my life. Or, if I eat this particular food, or I do this exercise, or I meditate, or something like that, that's going to change my life. It doesn't happen that way. It might change momentarily. It might improve certain areas in your life. But what you need for your life, you need a process. You need a process. The process is not complicated, but you need to take the time and invest the time to actually go through that process to design a life worth living. Today, remember, we're living a life of expectations, labels, and limiting beliefs that were put on us when we were young. We are now in that 2%, level. So most of us are stuck in the 98% of people who are still stuck in the jungle of life. So to get out of that, you have to follow a process. And the process that we have here, I call it the life design process, which is not, it's based on the simple principle, based on one of the Purposehood, the poet propositions that I talk about in the book. So in the book is broken into 3 different sections. The first one is about finding the existential purpose, or a theory for an existential purpose. The second part is 27 propositions that work on help you to create a process or your own empowering beliefs for your life. And the last part is about practices. So the second proposition, I talk about something called the extensions of being. And it's based on a simple principle. The one that we always, when I think about myself, or I think about the I think about the self. So most of us, we think about the I being the self. Well, in reality, that's an illusion. There's nothing called, I is just the self. We think about, sometimes they say self-made, self-created, self-taught. There's nothing called that we are self. When we think about that and just include the self in the I, then our I is very small. Our being, our existence is very small. We need to realize, and the simplest to realize at least, that actually in addition to that, we have something, a family, an extension that is a family. We are a product of a family. We're not like sea turtles. I mean, sea turtles, they're hatched, the parents are already gone, they head right away to the sea, and they start their journey. They don't need these nourishment, but we cannot. Human babies, we cannot grow without having that support that we have around us from the families that we have. Genetic families or caring family, it doesn't matter. We need that structure, and we are today because of that structure. So that structure is part of us. It doesn't leave us. It's still in there. And with that, our I grows a little bit in there. Then we start realizing that actually there's a third extension to our being, which is the work, the people, the function that we do, and all the people around us that help us do that function. And that does not mean only business. I mean, a house parent, that's work. And there are all support around you that you work with within this particular work. If you're a student, the same thing. That's the function that you're doing is the work here, not necessarily job that you're getting paid for. But all that, the function itself, the interaction that we have with our coworkers, with our boss, with the shareholders, with the customers, that all becomes part of us and part of who we are. our I will grow with that. Then when we realize that actually we also have a dimension or an extension of communities, the friends that we have, the forums, the neighbors, the associations that we belong to, all that expands our being in there. We realize that, we are made of those thoughts that are in the society, the educational system, the contributions of people before us, and the people that we interact with. So our being expands with these people that we have in there. Then we have this fifth extension, which I feel it's probably the most neglected, in here, which is nature. We don't think about ourselves or nature as being part of the I that we have, which is, sad, because it's impossible for us to be even alive without that extension of our being, right? You cannot, 3 weeks without food, we die. 3 days without water, we die. 3 minutes without breathing, we die. So we are actually, the food that we eat, like sometimes before I eat, I look at that apple, and literally this apple or this carrot or, whatever you're eating, in a couple of hours, it's going to become you. I mean, literally, this is not the metaphorical thing, that we say, oh, whatever you eat. It's actually literally that becomes your cells. So imagine that, and then we don't even think that this is all part of who I am. It's definitely an important part of who I am. And sometimes I think about this and I say, we know now, and we're learning more from the studies and the science, that our genetic or the genes or the DNAs or, it's all impact in a large extent who we are today. But we don't think about the impact beside the physical impact, our psychological impact. We don't think about the impact that we have from the food that we eat. And that food, that DNA, that component, which actually transform, become us. Yes, it has a physical side to it, but also it has a psychological side of it. And, we eat animals that are being literally tortured and suffering. And then we wonder, how come we feeling stressed, anxious, and we feel in all these negative states? And what we are doing, we're taking their experiences. We're taking the experiences that these animals are struggling with in nature, and we're just adding that to our own selves. And then we wonder why we're having problems. So that process, it's a process. And the life design process, it's actually not that complicated. All it is you take these 5 extensions, and instead of having them just be there, because they are there if you think about them or not, and instead of just making the first step of being aware of them, you actually work on designing those intentionally. So you design them in a way that will help you create the life that you are meant to live. So the question that I'm asking you here is, which one of these 5 extensions of being are you focusing on at this time of your life?
After your talk, after your recent comments, I thought more people will look at nature as something that they focus on, because we actually eat 3 times a day, don't we?
Please.
But anyway, just a joke, because I think it's people. I think with time, people realize that nature is our key plug to serenity, plug to purposehood. But we have a very varied end poll, and we have very varied share results. Here we go.
Very interesting to see this result. So you could tell here that 29, the majority is community focused. So we are focused, maybe that's why you guys are so impactful, because you're focusing on your communities. But we are spread all over in different direction. And I tell you, it's okay, as long as you are aware of all of them and you build in all of them, it's okay to focus at some time on one and more so than the other. The other question that I would like to ask you, if you can go to the B question. Laura?
Yeah.
Which one is the one that you are not focusing or not a part of your life at this moment? Which one is missing in your life?
Which one you're not focusing on? I guess people felt guilty and started to put nature as a...
That's good. That's a good point of awareness.
Well, I think that it's very important. What you just mentioned is very, very important. And so, and Paul, here we go.
Okay, let me just make a quick comment on this poll. It's this is every solution starts with awareness, right? If you're not aware that you have a challenge, why would you even bother doing anything in there? So it always starts with awareness. And I hope this question at least give you some awareness of what you are focusing on. And actually in our workshop, what I ask people to do, I ask them to take those 5 extensions and rate them 1 to 5. So put them in order, which one is the highest priority that they have, and then 2, 3, 4, 5. So you have a full understanding of where your extensions are today. And then I say, well, for the life that you would like to be, where do you think the priorities should be? Which is another interesting question. After you write that and you say, here's where I am today, but where should I be? And then you can see that there's a chance for you to actually refocus your life around the life that you want to build and you want to create. So let me get rid of this. By the way, I mean, the awareness that, 26%, wow, split like 3 ways, 26, 26, 26, between work, community, and nature. That tells you that there's something missing in your life. It's very simple. Now that you know, go connect with nature. Go for this nature walk. Actually, in Scotland, now the government allows doctors to prescribe nature for people. So just like if they prescribe medicine, you can prescribe nature. Borrow your neighbor's dog for a walk. Go walk by the river and flip the rocks and see, the plant underneath these rocks. Things like that increase your connectivity with nature will actually help with this. So there are things you do that you see this. In work, of course, most of us are missing work in here, but work is not always a job. It could be something that you can create, a volunteer work. You could work with a nonprofit organization, Be Women, to expand the message. So you could create and redesign the function that you are doing today to fulfill that area, such as work. Okay, let me close this. And then I wanna, so the actual process, the question that you asked, Laura, is like, what do you do? So the process that we do in a life design workshop or a course that we take, and this is mainly not just to help you design a life worth living, but we do like a 2-week deep dive that for 12 hours. So we have like 3 hours on Saturday and Sunday, and then the same in the week after. And we'll allow you to become a mentor and help other people to unleash their potentiality. Because if we live with an unleashed potentiality in a family that has their potentiality constrained, we're not living a full life, because this is part of us that is not unleashed. So our duty, we realize when we look at this equation of what with here, that it's our duty for us to expand and to live our full potential. We need not only to unleash our own potential, but that of our family members, our co-workers, and the people who work with us, the businesses that we help create, the community members and the friends, and the nature around us. So from there, we can start diving deeper into these different pieces. Now, these 5 pieces, each one has 5 components, and I'll just share that with you. You don't need to read all of that. Just to understand that there's a process that you can follow in there. And basically, you just need to put these Lego pieces of the person that you want to become. Once you realize your existential purpose and the purpose that is meant for you, or you are empowered to create for yourself and others, create that future that we need for humanity, then you realize that there are just these pieces that you need to put them together. What's the most important one, and the first one that we work on, is your existential self. You know, what was I created for, or what was I made for? What are the capabilities that I have that will allow me to become the person that I would like to become, or I want to become? And then you go into the other self pieces: physical, mental, emotional, spirituals. Then you go the same with the rest of them, and you go through that process. I'll stop here for a second Laura, if you have any questions. You're on mute. You're muted, Laura.
Maybe you can share how did you get to all these elements of potentiality based on your experience? What happened to you that really was it reading, personal experience? How did it happen that you came up with these unique perspective?
Well, came up is I think a strong word and a credit that rarely anybody deserves. You know, nobody comes, in my opinion, my humble opinion, I don't think anybody comes up with anything. It's everything, all the wisdom, all the knowledge is already in existence. It just, we become aware of it, or it becomes, in a sense, it's revealed to us. So we have our filters, our experiences, and the different pieces of knowledge that we collect and the processes that we do in our life. And with that, the more awareness you have, the more things or nature start revealing solutions to you. They say actually, like almost everything we engineer today, everything we invent, it's actually a discovery that we saw a process in nature that happens, and then we mimic that and we create something new. So it's kind of similar to this. For me, it was, an experience that I had after 21 days of meditations and fasting, that just after that night, which I talk a little bit about it in the book, everything just fell in place at one time. So it's almost like a download, that you feel. And I don't think it's something mysterious or mystic. It's just like some scientists who are going through all these thoughts on their mind, and then they're walking in the forest and they get this aha moment, and they see the answers in front of them. So it was
Ammar,
kind of
interrupt you there for Christ did the meditate. He also went to the desert to meditate and had only water for a few days. Muhammad did the same. Also, the Greek mathematicians said if you want to be in Pythagoras' team, you have to actually meditate and go and do some solitude, confinement. Is this something that you're proposing as for Purposehood, or is there something easier than that?
Well, meditation is just sitting. I mean, how much easier do you want?
Tell us more about your meditation style then. No, I meditated for 20 years. So.
No, I understand that. It's, look, again, like what I said before, there's no one magic solution that can solve everything. So meditation by itself, it might help you calm, but it's not necessarily the road to enlightenment. I mean, I know lots of people who meditate so they could become better soldiers or better, killers in a sense, or better sharper business people in the business that they do. So not necessarily meditation by itself, but you need a system up there. And in Purposehood, I propose, or I talk about the 5 streams of potentiality, which is a system that you need to actually work on to make any transformation in yourself. It starts with beliefs, then you go to mindfulness, then you go to giving, then you go to wellness, and then you go to belonging. So with these 5 things all together, then you can do and create the practices and the habits that can change your life. So if I'm meditating, but I have limiting beliefs from there related to this meditation, it's not going to help me that much. So you gotta first work on removing all the limiting beliefs, adding empowering beliefs, and then you can add practices such as gratitude, meditation, and so on. Definitely meditation is great because we have all these distractions. And there are 5 daily practices that I talk about that take less than 20 minutes a day, less than 20 minutes a day. You literally can change your life by taking the time to balance on daily basis. There are 5 simple practices. You find them in the book, you find them in the app, very powerful, simple practices that are based on the traditional knowledge and the latest scientific studies that I have seen firsthand how they changed my life and the lives of people who actually put these practices to use, not only for themselves, but also for all their extensions of being in their families, work, communities, and nature. One of the simple practices that we do, it's called Pause, Breathe, Smile, which is like this little band that I have here. It's a simple practice that actually takes 51 seconds. And the idea of it is to separate your reaction from the stimulants that is created. So we are today operating with a malfunctioned system, and we react very quickly in this jungle of life to these desires or these fears, and we don't have the space and the time to think and reflect and have an intentional action. So a simple action of pausing for 10 seconds. So if you pause just for 10 seconds and separate yourself from that stimulant, and then you breathe in in a certain way, you breathe in 3 times. So you take in 4 seconds, count of 4, and you let out 8, and you do that 3 times. And then you smile for full big smile for 5 seconds. So altogether is 51 seconds. 51 seconds. And if you just do that and you continue whatever else that you are doing, if you're in a family or with your spouse, you're having an argument, somebody calls a pause, we both pause for 10 seconds, just focus on one particular sight, sound, feeling, and then breathe 3 times. And then after that, big smile, both of us.
Can I call for a pause and do it for 1 minute?
Absolutely.
I think practice makes perfect, no? So please, can you guide us?
Very simple. So when I say pause, we all pause and just bring your focus to one thing around you. Just one thing, try. If it's something visual, then do that. If it's a sound, if it's a feeling inside, so you do that for 10 seconds. Then I'm gonna say breathe, and we take in 4, out 8, 3 times. And then when I say smile, we do a big smile. So let's pause. Breathe. Now let's big smile, big smile, big smile, big smile. show some teeth and squint here. This is how, other people read you that you are smiling. So big smile for 5 seconds, 5 seconds, 5 seconds. Beautiful. So this actually, it's a simple one. It's actually based on also some research done by a professor of psychology in the University of Miami. She was teaching meditation to the special forces, and they found, like, after they're doing 20-minute meditations, they performed much better. But the general told her, look, it's impossible for me to go and get these people, these troops, to do a 20-minute meditation, before they get into action. So what is the minimum that is needed for meditation to be effective? So she started, like, doing research on the brain and see what is this minimum amount that she can. And she found that in less than a minute, if you practice that on a regular basis, you actually can start getting the same benefit that you get out of meditation. So this practice, I recommend that you do it at least 5 times a day for yourself at different times. So just before you feel angry, you feel tense, before you eat, just say a pause, take a pause. And then do it with your family, do it at business, with your friends and communities, when you are sitting at dinner and so on. It's a beautiful, beautiful exercise.
Can you tell us more why you say 5 times? What does it build and how does it work in the brain, this tiny meditation?
Well, this, in addition to all others, our brains are like neuroplasticity. They used to think that this is just for children, and children easily can reform their brains. But now the research shows that actually your brain continue to generate and regenerate till the end of your life. So we are capable of actually creating new neural connections in our brain at any time. And this year, we need to disrupt that connection that we inherited of immediate reactions to any stimulant that we have there without thinking about it. And then, somebody comes in front of us while we're driving, something ugly most of the time comes out of us. But maybe when I said before that, I pause, breathe, smile, maybe I wish them some good wish. Maybe they are struggling with their life. I'll allow that few seconds of space between what just happened and between the reaction that I have, and most of the time just that awareness will change the interaction itself.
Excellent. I think that answered a few. Some people are asking again how to do this exercise. I think first of all, it's in the book in detail description with all the science. So I really recommend you to get the book, because there's a lot of incredible tips in the books about how to, because we have to know that purpose, you don't get it in a pill or it's a life journey. It's like an onion. You keep going and going and going and improving. Can you give us more tips?
I think the matrix ruined our perception of things, red pill or blue pill. And we think, okay, maybe if I grab that pill, then I'll figure out the purpose of my life. It's not a game. It's not rocket science. It's not brain surgery. It's just a simple process. It starts actually with very, very simple process. Usually, we go within like 20 minutes. You can write your purposehood statement. You can find that guiding star. And like Laura said, I go in details in the book about how to create your own purposehood statement. Laura, I see a little card there. You have yours? Or?
Yeah, I have my card. Actually, I have it on my computer for the last 6 years. And I love your position, your philosophy, Ammar, that to be purposeful in life, you also have to be a little bit selfish, because if you're all purpose, you become a martyr and you lose. So my purpose is I will create awareness and inspire to action people and institutions towards a caring economy. I will stay fit in body and mind with my daily routine. So basically, if I don't exercise and do my meditation and I say I can't start the day and help anybody else. So that's my daily routine, and I have to thank Ammar for this. So I write it in in a little piece of paper, and I stick it here, and I stick it in the bathroom. So another thing to do is you need to read your purpose statement that can vary, that can change, and wherever you can. And also discuss it with your friends and your family.
One of the things we spoke about is, we didn't have a chance this time to talk about, is selfish altruism, which is one of the core principles of Purposehood. And we don't need to be apologetic about being selfish, because genetically we are born to be selfish, but we are also born to be altruistic at the same time. So I could still see the hesitation within you, Laura, when you said, oh, it's a little bit selfish. You don't need to be a little bit selfish. You could be 50% at least selfish, and you're still okay, you know. So, you know, now we are made in this way. We have selfish genes that they have also another side, which is selfless side. And the combination of these two make us who we are. So when we create our purpose statement, we usually focus on both sides in that process that we do. By the way, the app, I know that the programmer is now trying to launch a new version of it, which will allow free access that you can write. You will have a genie actually on the app who will work with you on writing your purpose of the statement, and then you can see it, and you can set a timer on daily basis for you to, for you to repeat it to yourself. So the more that you are clear about that, the easier you'll find that you can wake up in the morning knowing exactly what you are there for.
So here is the app. It's right here. It's easy to get. And, as always, Purposehood is a journey, is a lifelong journey of improvement. And can you tell us more about the app, how it works, so that it's free, no? And
I think it has. I mean, first, I'd like you to let me see. I don't know if can you still see my screen or no?
No, I can't see it.
Okay. Well, I mean, Purposehood, I'll tell you what I'm.
Yeah, now you're sharing your screen.
Yeah. So Purposehood, this is the goal that I'm dedicating my time, full-time to at these days, which is to create a movement or inspire a movement. I don't want to create the movement. I just want to inspire that movement. I think the people who create it will be you. You guys are the doers who get things done. And the idea here is we all have the chance here to help every human discover and live their existential purpose with unleashed potentiality. And together, if we just make those changes in our own life, transformation always starts from self-transformation. If we start that with our lives, do that with our families, with the people that we work with, in our communities, then humanity will transform. And if we do it the right way, then nature will transform with us to the next stage of evolution. So everything is, whatever I'm trying to do here is going to help fund Purposehood, which is a nonprofit organization. And the app, I think we have like a version of it, which is free. And then there's another version that you could choose to pay whatever you want, anything from $1 to $10 a month to get all the practices. And then we are launching these courses that we'll do like for people who want to become mentors, which we do 2 weeks. And then for those who want to become coaches and teach people on a wider spectrum, a deep dive into designing a life worth living, then they can do an additional 8 weeks and become a Purposehood coach.
Excellent. And is there any other questions regarding the courses or the methodology?
Or anything.
Or anything, because we have still a poll to go through.
Oh, we do?
Yes, we still have one more. The last one is in 4.
I think we could see. We already have an answer.
what of these three are you seeking? Fulfillment, success, happiness?
Okay, let me talk about that. Let me talk about that for a second as you fill this. So the one of the things that we talk about in the book is this infinite desires, and those infinite desires. Actually, let me then. We're gonna talk about that. Allow me to. Talk quickly about the pyramid of desires. I don't know if you can see this with the screen popped up.
So just to share the results is mostly everybody fulfillment. Okay.
By the way, it's very, very interesting to see these studies. Usually, I tell you what happens in most of the workshops that I do, the people who are in there, when you have younger people, they look in for like teenage and so on, mainly they're focused on happiness. Then you find that people in their 30s, 40s, they're talking about success. That's the main focus. And then lots of the people my age or over 50, they start thinking about fulfillment. The point here is that today we are living in with these infinite desires in the jungle of life, and we are pursuing, as we are taught with the Maslow pyramid of desires, we pursue basic desires, which are the desires for power, desire for self-esteem, for eating, things like that. And then we have those are 16 basic desires. And then we have 10 essential desires that kind of create the role that we have in life, that drive us toward a particular role, the type of creator that we want to be in this life. And then from there are three fundamental desires. And if you ask people what is the core of why they want anything, they usually end up with one of these three things: happiness, success, or fulfillment. And finally, we have one existential desire, which is to know why we were put on this earth in here. And all these desires in a human, they have like three desire traits. We always want more, we want better, and we want it now. We want it sooner. We cannot wait for that chocolate cake, to eat it for, on the next birthday or something like that. I want it now, in here. And you always want something better. Whatever you have, you always want an improvement on it, and you need more of it. And what happened today is that in the jungle of life, because we are taught to follow the pyramid of desire this way, we almost all of us get stuck in the basic desires. So we are always in pursuit of those basic desires. We never get, few of us or some of us, maybe that 2% who become geniuses, they end up thinking about the role that they are meant to play in this life and follow their essential desires. And even fewer who actually reach the levels of happiness, success, and fulfillment in the fundamental desires, and extremely much less than that who end up finding the purpose of their life. If they're lucky before they die, they figure out, oh my God, my life was all about that, something like this. And I'm saying this is the reason why we are today stuck in this jungle of life. And if we just simply take this pyramid of desire and just flip it, just flip that. By flipping that and starting with our existential purpose, then everything changes. We find our purpose with guidance, start with our existential purpose. Now you have a totally different view on life. You have an expansive view of life that is guided by your existential purpose. So you realize that happiness, success, and fulfillment are just byproducts of living your existential purpose. And you realize you start focusing more on the role that you are meant to play in this life with your essential desires. And all of a sudden, the basic desires become not about having more of them. It becomes, what do I need out of those for my journey in life? And this is how we get rid of those chains of the infinite desires that are driving our life and become free to pursue our existential purpose and what we are meant to do in this life. I'll stop here.
Yeah, well, this is fantastic because I think that as we discussed before, Ammar, if we would only teach kids from the early ages, 3 to 4 year olds, to understand what are their purpose, rather than pounding on them about math, reading, and writing, will kids will be continuously thinking about their purpose, and they will fulfill it. They'll feel more fulfilled.
Well, the good news, according to that study at least, it shows that if you actually help them to start thinking about the purpose of their life, they will outperform their previous performance in science, math, and whatever other subjects. So it does not come as a replacement for whatever else that they are trying to achieve. Actually, it will enhance everything that they are trying to do. Because now you have a guiding principle in your life and you're moving toward it. So you're more willing to actually learn more, spend more time in learning, and put in the hard work that is needed.
Yeah, and I guess we could start even earlier than 3 years old, or because here they're asking, can you teach kids that are younger than 3 purpose? And also, how do you start teaching teenagers, teens to work on their purpose? And with that question, then we'll close the call because we're a little bit beyond our time. But I think
great question. It's a great question, very interesting question. I tell you, okay, let me answer the second part first. Can you teach, teenagers how to find their purpose? Absolutely, absolutely, you can do that. I actually had the privilege to do this with children of friends and what we call YNGs, in YPO. And I've seen actually they are more receptive to that clarity in their life than even the older generation. They kind of like looking, for a meaning in their life. And once they go through this exercise, it becomes super clear in their head. And something, you could see it just right in that workshop, that something clicks and change is happening. So definitely you could do that. Now about the 3 years old, my advice is don't teach a 3 years old their purpose, learn from them. The other way around. Make them your teacher. If you're lucky enough and blessed enough to have children who are 1, 2, 3, 4, up to 7 years old, if you are really blessed to have people like that, make them your teachers. You don't need to teach them. The only thing you can do for these kids is make sure that you don't corrupt them. They're born with their existential purpose right inside of them. They have the full potential. They have, happiness. You don't need to teach kids happiness or success or fulfillment. I mean, they're happy in their nature. You just look at them. In whatever circumstances, they're happy. The same thing with success. They never stop until they accomplish what they're. And the same thing with fulfillment. They never go to sleep with regrets like we do. So the best thing I say, if you are blessed with that, just learn from them, watch them. The best thing you can do for them is block the other people, ideas, labels, expectations that are trying to seep into their life. We got to be careful with the stuff that they watch, the media they consume, the news, the people they meet sometimes, because these people, these ideas become labels that become chains on their growth. So the best thing you could do for kids that age is become the blocking, the protecting, agent there from limiting beliefs, labels that are being placed on them. Teach them to be free from those labels at this early stage. Especially, I would dare to say, I know it's the hardest. That's why in the process that we do, comes later on in the life design process, reframing the stories of our past and removing the labels that we stick on ourselves, and the expectation, realizing, is what we live in, is it our own design or somebody else's expectation? These are the hardest. So if you can protect them at that young age from all these things, that's the best thing that you can do.
Wow, Ammar, that was very inspiring. And I unfortunately, my kids are a little bit older, but they definitely will be getting this in the next few days in a big way. But if you would like to share some closing remarks, and while you share these closing remarks, I got a pen and a piece of paper, because every time when we are closing a webinar, we say we learn such inspiring things, but the only way to actually get to change after hearing something, you need to write at least three things that you will actually change in the next 5 minutes. You write down, because if we don't write them down right away, life is full of inspiring things, especially webinars now, this galore, but write them down. There's so much. Ammar talked about jungle of life, the importance of having purpose, the journey of having purpose, the 5 extensions of being a life design process, and most important, unleash your creativity and direct your desires. I mean, I really recommend, one thing, I recommend everybody to read the book, because it's not an easy read, but it is a book that will change will give you a lot of insights that will lead you to a better or more purposeful life. Anyway, Ammar, if you want to give us your few closing remarks while people write, and if you want to share your remarks on the chat, that would be great.
I leave it to everybody, everyone to create their own aha moments, because it's a person, you could say something, but people hear it through their own thoughts and filters and understanding. So I'll leave that to you. But if I leave you with one thing, I say that there's a core belief that is needed for any person to become a purposehooder, a person who lives, is to believe. It's actually stated in what I call in the book, the poet, purposehood of everything theory. That everything in existence has an existential purpose. I think if you just leave with that everything that exists because there's a purpose, existential purpose for it. And that includes yourself, that includes your family members, that includes the co-workers that you don't like, the neighbors that annoy you. Everybody has an existential purpose. Unfortunately, we suffer because we don't realize that and we don't live it. So the best thing that we can do for ourselves and for others is to help them discover the purpose of their life, and then walk with them as we all live our existential purpose. This is how we grow as individuals. This is how we make transformation in our families, businesses, communities, and in the whole world. And I leave it at that.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much.
It was a pleasure to talk to you and talk to all of you, and a privilege. And thank you so much for this opportunity. And please feel free to call me with any question, and be more than happy to contribute in any way I can.
Thank you. So I invite you all to let me know if you're interested in these courses that Ammar will give, because I think that they are fundamental. Not only we as
I'm going to till the beginning of next year. So
yes, it will be in January. So we will give you all that information as soon as it's up, and we truly believe this is very, very important. So just for you to know, the next webinars we have for Be Women is this coming Wednesday. We have an amazing speaker from Africa, from Kenya, Caroline Dharma Madclough, and she's going to talk about local currencies, how communities can create their own local currency and maintain the government currency. But this is key for the future of reducing poverty, the key for post-COVID or during COVID, where the stagnation is so big, nobody has money. And so these are very, very interesting webinar. And then on September 15, we have also a very interesting webinar called Green Swans, the Coming Boom in Regenerative Capitalism by John Elkington. I think that one also would be a master class on where we are going towards a new type of capitalism. So with that, I would like to thank you all for participating, and hope to see you in the next webinar.